Howdy, everybody! This is June Powers with the first and last Oregon Trail review you'll ever need. First things first, know ye this, there's room for ongoing dialogue here. Please feel free to leave a comment of your feelings loathsome or loving regarding Oregon Trail types, the actual Oregon Trail, or that new trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and we can talk about it like people do. Every bit of attention here helps, and I'm fully jazzed you're here at all, combo friends. Now, I am going to be real with you, and I am going to get into the bread for this review. The game is not good. This review is going to be good because COMBOFANS videos are good, and I cared enough to make this, so the game has meaning to be discussed, but I am not going to be gentle. I'm going to be detailed. That is the result of me treating you with the respect and honesty you deserve, and that anyone who makes a product for sale deserves. If you find that to sound too confronting, that is utterly okay. Please leave a like to at least support me in this video making, and feel free to check out some more positively inclined content here. That makes up the absolute wealth of the channel. And if you're chronologically lucky, there'll be a Super Amazing Wagon Adventure video up by the time you're here, and you can see me discuss an Oregon trailer that I really deeply love because it's goddamn incredible. Oregon Trail Director's Cut, released March 20th, 2013, is the Kickstarter-funded and ultimately definitive version of the unaccented by-marketing subtitle Adobe Flash game Oregon Trail. Happy 10 years, Zombambo. Oregon Trail Director's Cut is then the fan-led and community-optimized version of this concept, a zombie parody adventure forward into hopeful crisis in the well-loved and certainly track-marked vein of the apocryphally quality Oregon Trail. Then it's a pre-loved and storied system of a video game with 495 presumed actual human beings pledging over $10,000 towards the apotheosis. Like the much more contemporary Friday Night Funkin', which you may know from being a New Guns alumni, you poor bastard. Us poor few. However, Friday Night Funkin' made approximately literally 137.5 times more than what Oregon Trail Snake charmed, so there lay the power of non-derivative video gamery polished a mind-blowing shine. Or maybe it's just dedicatable to this soundtrack comparison of these two, and you can immediately decide which rules the day. I bring that up not to plug Friday Night Funkin', even though I am, but because there's an important Kickstarter comparison to be made for Flash originator efforts in extraordinarily tried and true formats. Because there's a special issue with Oregon Trail's soundtrack, and that it doesn't work. You are seeing now testimonials from verified purchasers of the soundtrack who will reaffirm they are getting an incomplete, malfunctioning, and not worth the dosh product. Whilst we're still here, here's an out-and-out backer incentive from the Kickstarter page of Oregon Trail to allow an especially enterprising individual to insert any preferred personal malfeasance of amateur game design into this 100-fold consumer-responsible video game. You might be getting the idea by now, so your host June Powers is going to go ahead and say it. Oregon Trail, the director's cut, is impressively terrible. A series of abysmally ill-sighted design decisions coalescing into a masterstroke of inept and nonsensical filth mess. I don't think an Oregon Trail derivative is a good idea, generally. I think this genre typing has simply enough games. Like the more contemporary, what if there was a British woman shooting at you? Genre paladins in Overwatch and Battleborn inhabit the stuffed fullness. And I will be honest, I have played a weirdly enormous quantity of the Oregon Trail derivatives, and literally none of those shooters except paladins. I've enjoyed Super Amazing Wagon Adventure, Death Road to Canada, the Oregon Trail itself, the Oregon Trail Deluxe now with mouse support and also featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series, and our titular Oregon Trail. And I feel self-affirmed in saying this is just not a good system for video games as a player engagement tool or player storytelling accelerant tool. This is not a vivid and exciting monolithic touchstone of pixel art, and it is not a gripping and evocative and special homestead. It's an edutainment title with the bleak reality tuned to fuck you 7-year-old. to the old world colonials can be better represented as hellishly set upon fools who dare dream of something better and further. It was a DOS box Pandora's box of shared trauma. It's the nostalgia referential philosophical thought that the flaws of technology will be what we strive to emulate in the future, in that is where the loving feeling for the past is kept. Why Hotline Miami 2's pause menu is covered in VHS scan lines, and why Super Amazing Wagon Adventure has the CRT mode. It's a shared pain, kind of weight we lift together. So let's talk about the hellish weight this game has, which you can otherwise call the gameplay. It's absurd. You aim in reverse. The opposite of where you intend to shoot is where you drag and drop your mouse, which will suggest the trajectory of a slow bullet to where you hope the enemy will be upon your awaiting impact. Which is a shame, because the enemies in the video game are unresponsive and absurdly loud pixels of unambitious and plainly unspecial green ghoul men who dare not engage you with a mechanic set that evolves as the video game does. It does not. But rather a hide-and-seek whack-a-mole or a point-and-clicky, whoa, green guy, aiming nightmare. For a singular point of emergent gameplay praise, occasionally, when leaving a settlement, you will be beset by a biker gang, in all that ambitious storytelling glory of it, with them and they being the same in every dozen-fold instance I encountered in my recent playthrough, and then you'll have to press W or even S to combat that. So that's the end of the gameplay loop as far as twitch reflexes and real vivid indications toward player engagement go. The zinger stuff, the thing that actually goes in the trailer. The rest is menus, economics, resource management, as Oregon Trail, the original, intended to try. To feel the brutal slog and wear down of a journey like this, with all the crises that befell you in the day-to-day drive forward. The sheer emotional pull of the game as represented by game mechanics, to be completely honest. The part that most effectively and evocatively will make you think, oh god, I don't know how to save them all. I don't know how to do this. How to live, how to manage this life. And then you get dysentery. And then you die. Except that you don't need to and shouldn't do any of those or think about any of those things. You should only use the scavenge action forever, because every other option towards resource gain or management is absurdly suboptimal within Oregon Trail, the director's cut. I found by the end of my playthrough that opting to do literally any communal good or random task in any townstead you stumbled into was a raw numerical mistake. The most profitable encounter of the whack-a-mole pixel-perfect shoot-a-guy variety awarded me $56. With the average numerical outcome being some dozens less than that. Whereas scavenging, which takes a literal minute, can award you 150 food, $100, more fuel and scrap for your car, and not actually demand real mechanical skill beyond accumulating your battered and beaten soul to the bizarre aiming system of the video game. So, it's not a good video game as a video game. It's not an engaging or evolving, or at least interesting set of gameplay interactions. There's not a moment of shocking tension or intrigue, except for an absurdly rare boss battle against a zombie bear that also is just pointing and clicking. And we'll have to look somewhere else for engagement and joy in the shattered world thusly. What about storytelling? This is better, actually, for the breadcrumbs worth of storytelling that there is. I need pay attention to this because I don't think anything that has ever existed is utterly without value. It is important for us to reconcile that things aren't made by accident and no one goes ahead going, I want to make something that sucks and is stupid and doesn't get focus and attention. I want to be the focus of an extraordinarily derisive YouTube review a decade after the fact, once we've stopped patching the game and all of its expansion content is broken and everyone just kind of goes to Steam refund hell about it. I suppose that's beyond the purview of the writing consultant that pushed this one forward, which is of course still contained in a fully random encounter that you may or may not ever see. It's you, 1, getting the random chance to stop the car and check the world out, and 2, getting the random encounter that is the church mortality debate, as I've named it. You encounter a man of the cloth who definitely does not exist in any graphical sense, which isn't necessarily a failing. Except nobody in this game exists in any real graphical sense, notwithstanding Clements, this bizarre southern dink of a mascot they've chosen for this video game, which, with each and everybody else on the guy you can see front being a referential trace of a more interesting and important zombie media touchstone, such as Shaun of the Dead if you're male aged 23 to 34. Or the original characters, and this will look like nothing at all, as this footage of a horde fight will show you. Regardless of the ethereal nature of the man of the cloth, he stands before you and he goes, "It's you. It's you I've needed, and it's you I've been wanting for, and only you can help me." And in that moment, you're a character in a zombie setting. You're talked to and asked to respond, and you actually do, and you feel it. "Sorry, what? Do I know you?" "No, but God sent you, and you need to kill me." And that's the encounter. He accuses you of being divine intervention to reward him of his dedication to the cloth and his retainment of his mortal soul, his not falling to the foul fierceness of the zombie infestation, of hiding away from consequences and people, and at first blush of encountering an armed and adventurous man, just asking them to free him of any more consequence. That consequence being a life that could go wrong, badly, and break his faith further. And so he asks you to shoot him, straight in the head, and make sure he can never become undead. That he'd rather die a man, as though that's better. It's a legitimate thought-provoking question and a scene with gravitas and impact and intrigue, with player-directed outcome. You can hand him a gun and tell him to do it himself, you can shoot him like a stuck pig, or you can just leave and go back to the worst Oregon Trail clone that exists. And you will eventually, because the moments of quality and meaning here are so few and far between that I began to imagine the joy of simply dying from exposure and dehydration somewhere other than this accursed 8-bit. Regardless of that, I shot him. I lined up my rifle and I pointed it at him straight and I pierced his skull, and it was instantaneous and he was done, and that was the story of him, and I penned the final chapter. Judge, jury, and executioner. As though I were God. And there wasn't a second to rest with that, to think about it or feel if it was correct or sane, and where our definition of sanity needs to sit now that the world is overcome with gruesome hordes of the damned. Because it almost frame perfectly switched and swapped itself back to the car riding down the highway while an utterly insubstantial chiptune played, and I had so much goddamn ammo from the scavenging minigame that I didn't even feel the impact of losing the bullet and the world losing that invisible man. Because any death that ever happens is a tragedy. This isn't the kind of game that has story threads like that. It additionally isn't the kind of game with interesting gameplay elements that somehow weave you back into societal rumination, as George Romero intended this genre typing be when he breathed evil life into it, before Sang Ho Yoon perfected it with Train to Busan. This game is rather just what our next and final chapter will dictate to you now. So in conclusion, it's one of the worst things a video game can be, and it accomplishes it wholly accidentally in that way that unexceptional and simply boring media do, without intending it, without thinking about it, and with rather just being nothing. It is simply nothing. With every chance to excel in an area, it fails. With over $16,000 and 495 real human beings pledging that they want it and they need it, it fails. And it fails. Can you imagine that? Aspiring so loosely and reaching the height of such diminutive nothingness that you'd have had no stars even to end up amongst. So far were you from aiming for the sky? Rather completely set within yourself to just have a Shaun of the Dead reference in there, to put in a little interstitial frame of an Evil Dead bit. Not to leave your own mark upon the zombie media or upon people that care to play resource management games and see the storytelling that emerges from the intensity of them. With going, I don't need to make art. It can just be fun. And then it's not even fun. That's the most damning and final thought I have. It's a series of risks not taken. A gameplay system taken from a decades old and long surpassed forebearer. Writing not given room or place or serious front-facing load to breathe, supported by absurd and bad-feeling aiming against dumb little enemies. It's simply a profoundly lame little video game that I just don't think anybody on Earth should play. So basically, play Death Road to Canada instead. That has issues, but it also has a game in it. That's it.